I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. I know the Friday after was wonderful.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Go Cougs.
Yeah. It's great when it happens.
Yeah.
You know how you keep the cougars out of your yard? You put up goalposts.
Okay, the minutes from the previous meeting, I think we've all seen them, and they've been available on the website, and should ask for any additions or corrections.
I do appreciate the spelling of my name as Brain. That's a compliment to me. Those could be changed to Brian in 2 parts. Those are the only changes I have.
Larry, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
Excuse me?
Motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
I approve. I move to adopt the minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Well, we've been over this a bunch of times, but we may have some members of the public out there that aren't familiar with it, but Mary Ann, could you give us another shot at the background?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a little bit of background for folks that are new. In 2017, the residents of the Flood Control Zone District presented the Spokane County Board of Commissioners with a petition to appoint a Board of Appraisers to reconsider, revise, or reaffirm the classification and relative percentages of the parcels within the Flood Control Zone District under 8609. RCW, excuse me, 86.09. The objectives of this reassessment are for the Board of Appraisers to take a fresh look at the parcels contained within the boundaries of the Flood Control Zone District and determine or reassess the benefits each parcel derives from flood control and stormwater management or water quality efforts undertaken by the district. And then, based on those benefits, reconsider, revise, or reaffirm the current classification of each parcel with respect to each of the 2 purposes of the Flood Control Zone District. In performing this reassessment, the Board of Appraisers is tasked with identifying every parcel that derives any benefit so that the assessments fairly distribute the costs of the district among as many benefited parcels as allowed by law. At the end of this reassessment, the Board of Appraisers will provide the county commissioners, acting as the supervisors of the Flood Control Zone District, with a new base map and land descriptions outlining the classifications of the different lands on the base map based on their relative benefits derived separately for flood control and to water quality or stormwater management. In this new base map will be used to levy assessments on those parcels not otherwise classified as non-benefited based on their relative benefit ratios. So this is the 5th meeting of the Board of Appraisers. And after collecting background information and visiting the Newman Lake area and the properties, they're beginning the process of identifying current benefits received. So it's kind of the summary of where we're at. Sure.
Okay, do you have any comments or questions from either Larry or Brian?
Not for me.
No.
Okay, just a little update. We, all the members of the board did a familiarization tour of the lake and the facilities about a month ago. And we have assigned areas of concentration to each of the board members. Larry has from the pump house south to Star Road. Brian has from the pump house north. And I'm taking the east side. Larry, did you do get a chance to do a detailed inspection?
I drove the area, yes. And I drove a little bit north of the pump house.
Shame on you, you're infringing on Brian's territory.
Yeah. There aren't, so my area goes over to Star Road. There's not very many parcels on the bottom end there.
Okay, I'm planning to come over Sunday and spend Monday and possibly Tuesday doing a detailed look at the east side of the lake. Brian, have you made any plans to take a look?
I'm gonna go look at my properties sometime next week.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to get that done. I think it's going to take about a day or a day and a half.
Yeah, that's about what I figured. A day and a half, maybe 2 days. Okay, Marianne, we talked about the split parcels at the last meeting. And I talked to the assessor and he indicated that, or not the assessor, the chief appraiser, they had individual values for the split properties. I think it'd be more efficient if somebody from your staff could get those split values rather than one of us coming over and sitting down with the assessor. If in fact that's our final recommendation, but some of the written comments that came in since the last meeting seemed to suggest that they felt that that was probably the more equitable way to do it rather than averaging land values and areas in your formula. But anyhow, once we get there, we can deal with that. Brian, or do you have any input on the written comments that came in?
Go ahead, Larry, if you're ready. If you're ready, you could comment first and then I'll follow you.
Oh, okay.
Or I can go either way.
Let me get moved over here on the other side of my monitor. So it appears that we just have two comments. Am I understanding it right? One comment is divided into two parts. So the first comment is written by an engineer, and he seems to have some good points. I'm not sure if, since Casey's no longer with us, I don't know if we're thinking of proceeding in the same way on one of these issues. I've had a lot of time to think about whether to use the market value estimate or not. And I'm afraid my opinion hasn't changed on that. Just because the state has made the decision that for income tax, for property tax purposes, that some classes of property deserve a deduction, doesn't seem to me to be relevant when it comes to dividing up the costs of maintaining the water quality system and flood control systems. That seems to me to be a separate issue. And I suspect that this is an issue that is going to end up being decided for us, that we're not going to be able to make a recommendation on it. And as I understand it, we are just making a recommendation. Someone else is making the decision.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it too.
The second comment also appears to be well thought out. I haven't finished reading all of it. It's long. You know, different people have natural tendencies. With me, the issues of fair and equitable are a big deal. I think everyone should be treated fairly and equitably. And I feel that's an important part of what we should be doing, unless we are told otherwise by someone with the authority to determine that we shouldn't be focused on that. I guess that I don't have anything else to offer.
Okay. I think my thoughts are very similar to yours. I think these two comments bring out a lot of questions that need to be addressed, and fair and equitable is right there at the top of the list. And how do we determine that? And I think we're getting there. I don't think we're completely there yet, but Lauren Burley indicated property should have only tangible benefits. And, that's what we're trying to measure, or what are these tangible benefits? And some people have mentioned those, and some people believe these benefits should accrue to the flood district and some don't. So I think it's a judgment call on our part on how we ultimately rule on those things. The other item is talking about current use versus market value use, or non-current use, and whether or not these current use properties are exempt from assessment. And I've done quite a bit of reading on that. And, Lauren brings up a good question that perhaps we need a legal analysis on this to see whether or not these assessments apply to current use lands. In reading it, in my opinion, the exemption from assessments applies to things like sewer, storm sewer, roads, and water improvements. And it doesn't say anything in there about flood control districts. It does say other improvements. and it talks about LIDs, local improvement districts, and other things like that. And I don't know if this is considered an LID or not. So perhaps we need some kind of determination as to whether or not 8434 applies to flood control districts. I think we established in the past that it has applied, if I remember right, but I think that we need to look at that and get an interpretation of it. And I think the split parcel, it's clear the split parcel valuations need to be corrected so that the values are addressed where they lie. Yeah, if they're in a certain benefit ratio, that's where the value should be applied and not average it. So I think those are the three main common things that we need to consider. And I really appreciate the comments because it helps guide us in how we move forward. And that's all I have, Gary.
I agree, Brian. The comments bring up a lot of issues for us to consider, and they're very helpful. And my apologies, I didn't welcome Mr. Starrett to our meeting as new member. Has Casey updated you or brought you up to speed on what his advice was in past meetings?
Yes, and good morning, and thank you. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you regarding all these interesting and challenging legal questions. Before Casey left for holiday break, we did chat. He did get me up to speed to a certain extent. And I know that at this point, either myself or Mr. Evans or both of us are going to be drafting a letter to the Attorney General to get what's called a letter opinion regarding some of those issues. And that's my understanding as to the status at this point.
Okay, yeah, that was my understanding also. I just wanted to make sure we're moving forward on that and hadn't gotten dropped. The ball
We
hadn't
are.
gotten dropped.
Gary, the other thing that I wanted to mention that I forgot was, I think the way that 8434 was set up was believed that the legislature thought that these improvement districts didn't benefit current use lands, and therefore they should be exempt from assessment, other special assessments. And in this case, I think, it's up to us to decide, are these properties benefited by the county's flood control district and their operations? And if they are benefited, if we determine they are benefited, then it seems to me that they should be subject to those assessments. So that's something I think we need to consider, and it's something that hopefully the Attorney General will get will rule on. And if it's different, it's different. I'm just saying the way that I look at it right now. So that's all I had to add.
Okay. Marianne and I talked earlier in the week. I envision that once we have, three of us have completed our, what I call detailed inspection, we're going to have a work session where the room and we lay out the maps and kind of decide on benefit areas and benefit ratios. My feeling is that it's something we need to get over to Spokane and in view of this public meetings thing, where they've got the equipment all set up and they've got all the resources there. But Mary Ann, have you done any research into that?
I haven't had a chance to yet, but I would think that we could look at an opportunity maybe for a facility in your area and have some, set up some remote equipment. In fact, there may already be a facility at, say, a hotel conference center or something like that, that we could make use of existing equipment. But we'll look into that option to save you guys having to travel all the way over here just to have a meeting. So
Okay, you're going to research
Yep.
a place where that's possible?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a couple ideas. One of them is Campbell's Resort here in Chelan.
oh right, yeah.
But the other one might be the city of Wenatchee. And I know Brian does work for them regularly. And I would guess that if you were to talk to them, that they might be amenable.
That offer facilities. That's an option too.
Yeah, no, it makes no difference to me. If we can get the equipment set up and get a facility, why, no difference to me.
Are you thinking of just have a kind of a general idea, time frame that you're looking at, like later in January, particular time frame that you kind of want to aim for?
I would say probably mid to late January. Does that work for you, Brian and Larry?
Yes.
I'm going to be in California. That's Annie sort of makes those decisions and takes care of that. So I don't know when we'll be back, but given how long we've been gone in the past, I think we're likely to be back by the middle of January.
Okay, end of January work for me.
It looks like, Mary Ann, we have a meeting set up tentatively for the 19th of January. Is that, Larry, too close to when you get back, or would that work? Because this will have to be a public meeting, this work session.
Right. As long as I know when it is, I can make it happen, so to speak.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll aim for the 19th then, is that?
Sure.
It looks like the next Wednesday would be the 26th. But
Okay.
we'll aim for the 19th if that sounds good to everybody.
Yep, tentatively, let's say the 19th.
Okay.
And we're probably looking at a fairly extended meeting.
Okay. Start about the same time, but allow it to go a little longer than kind of our more typical 2 hours. Is that kind of what you're
Sure.
thinking into the afternoon?
I think so.
Okay.
Probably even extend into the afternoon. We might have to take a break for lunch. And
Yeah.
And either the county's going to have steak and eggs delivered to the meeting room.
Pizza. You know, God invented pizza and people invented all the other kinds of food.
Okay, Larry or Brian, have any items you want to bring up?
I have a comment I'd like to make. I found the comments that from the public this last week to be thoughtful and well written, and I appreciate it. And I'd like to encourage others to do the same. I think the more input you get, the more voices that are heard, the more likely you are to get aimed in the right direction. And I'm curious if anyone has any other issues that we haven't talked about that pertain to making a fair and equitable decision. So if others would like to submit that, that'd be great.
Good point, Larry. Brian, do you have anything new to bring up?
Well, not new, I guess one more item on the whether or not the assessments extend to current use. In reading that current use or 8434 further, it talks about if any of those properties are removed from current use, then any assessments that were made during the time it was in current use have to be paid back with interest and the amount plus interest. And so that if that's the case, and some of these current use properties are removed from current use, the district would have to have the ability to go back and reassess those properties for the back assessments. And so that needs to be put on record and known. Maybe there's quite a few that'll never, or it'll be a really long time before they come out of current use, but the county needs the ability to go back and receive those back assessments if that does happen. So that's my only other comment.
That makes it sound like the assessments are deferred, not eliminated.
Correct. That's the way it reads. Is it's a tax deferral program. It's not a tax-free program. You don't.
I think that has implications for us.
It does. It does, and that's what brought up this whole current use versus market value, taxable value versus market value concept. It's just a lot easier to use market value. Then you don't have to worry about figuring out any back taxes or penalties and interest if these properties transition. So it's just another level of complexity we need to consider, and the district should be prepared for if in fact that happens.
Good point, Brian. Okay, do we have any members of the public that would like to speak?
If you'd like to speak, raise your hand. If you're logged into Zoom, if you're on the phone, it'd be *9.
Okay, Tumwater, welcome to the meeting, and go right ahead.
Yes, thanks. So I have a question about, could you give a couple examples of current use and what that would look like for a property to change its use from current use to non-current use?
We're not proposing that any properties change from current use.
Right, I understand that, but I don't understand what current use in a practical way, what it might look like.
So current use is a tax program that the state has come up with to help people with taxes in exchange for keeping property in farm, agriculture, cash crops, timber, that sort of thing. And the legislature has identified that in keeping these properties in these more or less conservative and productive uses, they should get a tax savings. And so that's the current use program. It's a tax deferral program. You enjoy a tax savings while it's in there. Once it's removed, it's subject to back taxes for 7 years plus penalty and interest on the difference between current use value and market value over those 7 years. So that's the current use program. The question before us as the Board of Assessors or Appraisers is whether or not these current use assessments apply to the flood control district. And it looks like we're going to be getting an answer from, hopefully from the Attorney General on that before we rule and just see what happens. And how does current use apply to the flood control district and its assessments? Well, one, it's whether or not it should be assessed or it's exempt from the special assessment. That will guide in how the benefit ratios are drawn for properties in the district. And it also affects, the assessments for all the other properties and how does that factor into the whole community and the whole district. So that's basically the current use issues. Does that answer your question, or what else can I provide to help?
Well, that was really helpful. Most of the properties in this map are lakefront properties, I think, and they're off the lake. I know last meeting there was a person who spoke about they used to raise cattle and they no longer raise cattle there. So that would be going from a current use where they get a tax preference or conservative tax benefit to no longer getting that tax benefit. And then they could be assessed differently is what I think I heard you say.
To me, I see that as a separate issue. Just because they're no longer farming it does not mean it has to go out of current use. That's an assessor question, and whether or not if it any longer meets the needs of the current use program, but that's separate from what we're doing. And the value, it's all tied to the value. And let's just say, for example, they could no longer farm the property, they can't raise cattle, they can't spread fertilizer. And frankly, there's probably a lot of other things they can't do. The value of that property is probably going to be pretty low. So that's factored into the benefit ratio already. And so it shouldn't be a huge impact or change to that property if the value doesn't change, regardless of what use it's in.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, thanks for your explanation.
Sure.
Thank you, Tumwater. Do we have anyone else? Jessica, you're on the stage.
Utilize the raise hand function or *9 if you're on the phone.
How about if we do it this way? Is there anybody out there willing to talk about what they perceive are benefits that the flood control district provides to the community?
Ron, do we have anybody else that's got their hand up? Welcome back, Dennis.
How we doing, guys?
We're working at it.
Well, I'll bite on that last question, Brian. I think as I explained in my comments, the benefits of the flood control district certainly is to the downstream farmland and that sort of thing. And of course, the major issue to me there again is the fact that our district doesn't even include the people that are actually flooded, which I see as a very major issue. But the benefits for flood control and water quality, I believe, should be, very much separated. Flood control is a little easier because you can bound it, and who's affected by the flooding. Right now, 85% of the budget for flood control is paid for by waterfront lots. And when you talked about current use versus the value of the land, and Brian, I think you said it wasn't very beneficial, that current use in many cases decreases the market value of maybe $90,000 or $100,000. It uses a current land use of about $1,000. I mean, it's that extreme, and there's multiple cases. I've sent those cases to you. So there is a huge benefit to that. But flood control is an easy one. I would like very much for you guys to look a little harder at the water quality, because again, right now, about 84% of the water quality is paid for by lakefront land. And basically the 19,000 acres above the lake in the watershed can send anything down Thompson Creek they want to. And those of us on the edge of the lake will pay to clean it up. You referred to a comment from Lauren Burley that said it needed to be tangible benefit. I'm not exactly sure I know what that means, but I don't believe that you can continue asking the people in the direct proximity of the lake to keep paying to clean up and essentially neutralize the nutrients coming in from the lake from the 19,000 acres above it, or the 8 or 10,000 people who visit our lake each month in the summer. And so defining the benefits is very difficult to do, I find, for water quality, because you're actually using a flood district procedure, so it doesn't really give you anything. So I don't know how you accomplish that for water quality. It has baffled those of us that have been working on this for several years continually, but somehow you have to take the burden off of the 770 of us. So I hope that helps. Keep pushing it, guys. Anything I can do, let me know.
Thank you, Dennis. Yeah, my preliminary feeling is that, and it coincides with several of the written comments and oral comments we've gotten, is that there is a case to be made for increasing the area involved in water quality and some of those upstream areas to the north that are in the drainage to Thompson Creek. But it's an area that I definitely think we have to look at.
Well, Gary, I see what you're saying there. And I think that it has merit, but I'm afraid that that's not dealing directly with benefits, it's dealing with causes. And that we aren't charged to address causes. And if we were charged to address causes, there'd have to be a lot of studies done, but putting in a sewer system would be one of the things that you would want to push for. I don't think that's our mission. Our mission is to figure out the relative benefit to each particular parcel, group them into classes, and I think that's about it.
What would you think of this, thinking about it this way, Larry? And I think Dennis said it well. So the water from the watershed makes its way down to the lake, right? Once it's in the lake, it needs to get processed for water quality and whatnot. So the alternative may be that if those facilities weren't there, would those people have to process their own water or retain their own water prior to it getting to the lake? I see that as a benefit. They're not having to process water. The county's doing it, therefore it's a benefit to those parcels in the watershed.
Well, I think there's a case to be made beyond benefit for water quality. Now, flood control benefit is pretty straightforward. But water quality, I think we have to look at what the causes are of pollution. We have many of the properties, or most of the properties on, or I guess all the properties, have septic systems and that leach into the lake, and so they have been historically assessed a higher rate because of their causing pollution. Likewise, some of the up lake farmers who used to fertilize and raise cattle, and they had all that coming down into the lake, were assessed at a higher rate. I think there's a case to be made for causation of pollution, and not only considering benefit, but who's causing the problem.
Well, I agree. I agree that that's important. And if I were the king of the world, I would really be focused on cause.
Okay, Ron, do we have any other members of the public that would like to address us? Tumwater, you're back.
Yes, just a quick comment. There are, I don't know how many cabins or homes, well, cabins have a closed septic system like we do. We have no drain field, so we have zero impact on the water quality because we have a enclosed septic tank that doesn't go to drain field, and therefore it doesn't impact the quality of the water quality of the lake.
Does that mean you pump out the effluent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
So there
out of
was,
curiosity, how often do you have to do that?
well, it depends how often we're there. It, 1,500 gallon tank, it doesn't take very many days to fill that thing up.
Huh.
So it's just on the number of people and how frequently we're at the cabin. But our cabin and the cabin next to us have the same system. And I just don't know how many of those systems are around the lake. 60 years ago, we used to have a cesspool. Well, certainly a cesspool system more than likely would have. We changed from that system to the system we have currently, but it'd be helpful to know if Mary Ann or someone else does know the number of closed systems like we have.
I seriously doubt that anybody has done that research, but I don't know.
Yeah, we don't have any recent records of it. It would
Yeah.
require probably somebody going through health district records to.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else wish to address the board? Dennis?
Yeah, just a brief comment. I do understand the limitations of the scope of the work that you guys are doing. And so, Larry, when we want to ask the king for the day, I think that question has to go to Marianne, Chad, and the BOCC. We've got a district that's 50 years old, is grossly out of date, and doesn't consider that the people that are flooded in the flood district, and it doesn't consider causals. This issue is not going to be over with this study. This issue is going to go on. I would like to hear from Chad and Marianne and the BOCC in whether they see that this is at all a problem, or whether this is just a few of us out here in the countryside complaining. So I'd like to hear or see you interact with them and see what they propose to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Ron, we have anyone else?
I don't see anyone.
Doesn't look like anybody else wants this. Brian or Larry, anything else to bring up?
Nothing for me.
Well, I don't have anything else that I want to bring up.
Okay, do we want to set a date for the next meeting? Tentatively scheduled for December 15th.
It's okay for me. I will be coming from California. I mean, I will be doing it. I'll be in California, but I can Zoom from California, so we're good to go.
Gary, I'm looking at our calendar, and there's one tentatively set up for the 8th, next Wednesday. I don't know, is that something Ron put in, or is that to get us on track, or? We've got one on the 22nd.
Yeah, we changed this meeting to the 1st instead of the 8th.
I think the 8th was the original every other week date.
Okay.
Yeah. A week space is a little too soon, or maybe we want to just defer it until January.
I do want to bring up, I think we kind of, Gary skipped over one of the items on the agenda, and that was the kind of the schedule and what was in the contract in terms of the schedule for the phase 1 was kind of set up to be completed here at the end of the month. So you might want to kind of take that into account in your scheduling.
What, in your opinion, do we have left to complete phase 1?
Well, yeah, if we pull up the hang on one second here. Let's see. So what we had with the deliverable for the end of phase 1 was a preliminary draft report, including like an outline of benefits or benefit areas and kind of a summary of your approach on the benefit ratio assignment. And that would wrap up phase 1. And then proceeding from there, the phase 2 would, we had tentatively talked about, we'll get in more of the details on actually, drawing the maps. So now, does that make sense?
I'm confused.
So the contract that we
Yeah,
did
I
for
understand
both
that.
of you. Okay.
but you mentioned deliverables. What are you anticipating we are going to deliver by the end of the year?
Some sort of a summary of kind of where you're at and what you're looking at in the way of benefits and how you're going to kind of the methodology at which how you're going to approach it to move forward.
Okay,
Is there any question about whether there's going to be a phase 2?
No, we just need to do the paperwork to move forward, but we would like to kind of close out phase 1.
okay, how about if we set up the next meeting on the 15th of December, and in the meantime, Larry and Brian and I try to come up with a summary of where we are now.
Maybe we can do that on the 19th when we get together.
Pardon me?
We're supposed to get together on the 19th, so perhaps that can be part of what we focus on that day.
That'd be the 19th of January.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But
Gary, I can put together a letter that summarizes where we're at in the process, and I don't know how. Would I just present that at the next meeting for you guys to review, amend, change? How would we do that? Would that suffice, Mary Ann?
Yeah, I think that would do us good, and then we'll also get going on the second phase in terms of a contract to you guys soon.
Okay.
Okay, Grant, I know you're not the attorney, but to make things a little smoother, can Brian send a draft of that letter to Larry and I so that we can comment at the 15th meeting, make any additions or?
I think in the direct, when we've talked about shared documents before, that would seem to be a concern regarding the Open Public Meetings Act.
Mary Ann, couldn't they post that to the website? And then these other two guys could see it and it becomes public at that point. You know, send it to you, you could post it on the website and they all have it. So it's all open and public at that point.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I think that may work. I can verify that.
Thank you.
But either way, I can prepare it and I can send it to Mary Ann, and then you can post it or not post it at that point, or otherwise we just have Gary and Larry look at it the next meeting. So
Yeah, when we get something like that, I would like to have a little time to digest it before I start talking off the top of my head, which is pretty bare.
That means the ideas escape better.
Okay, so let's say the 15th, same time, 10 a.m. Okay, anything else anybody has to come forward with?
I did want to kind of bring in and thank you guys for living with us through this open public meeting process and the stuff that we put on the, you know, to make it open, but feels like it gets in the way of everything. Thanks for sticking with us here on this.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second,
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, 11:15, the meeting's adjourned.
Are we going to start an executive session next?
No.
No? Okay.